But this is where I want to start. In 2008, the government introduced free vaccinations against HPV. It is the cause of cervical cancer. It's available to all girls in New Zealand at the age of 12. A Cancer Society spokesman said anyone who'd been vaccinated should still have regular 3-year smears between the ages of 20 and 70. The vaccine doesn't protect against all types of HPV and only provides about 8 years of protection before it begins to weaken. And with cervical screening, about 1 in every 90 women will develop cancer. 1 in 200 will die from it. With the screening, about 1 in every 570 will develop the disease, and 1 in 1,280 will die from it. Screening works. The vaccination, says the mother of a 28-year-old who just died, should be taken seriously. Any form of cancer is horrific, and many will survive through wonderful treatment. The treatment's not nice, but when you're faced with a death sentence, it's the path you go down. But needless deaths, the number of needless deaths that could be stopped, people could be saved because of vaccination. Mums and dads, I want to hear from you. Your daughter gets to 12, 13 or 14. What do you do? Do you vaccinate or not? Some camps will say it's just going to make our girls promiscuous. Others will say it will save their lives. What do you say? Let's get the show started. 0800 80 1080 Newstalk ZB. But in most cases, it will. And from the age of 12, our daughters, our girls, our nieces can be vaccinated. I want to know your thoughts around this. This is a very, very interesting thing that happens. Gardasil. It will protect, in most cases, against HPV, which causes the cervical cancer. It won't protect against all of them, but it's pretty good insurance. Is 12 too young to be taking out this insurance policy? Should it be compulsory? And how many parents, how many of you listening, have had the conversation with your daughters, with yourselves, and gone ahead and had the vaccination? Gone with Gardasil. If you're in the medical profession, I'd like to hear from you. If you are parents that have had the conversation with your daughters, if you, as a young woman, had the conversation with your parents, 0800 80 1080. Hello, Brett.
Hi.
Howdy.
How's it going?
It's good.
Good. I just wanted to share a word on a thought about the vaccination topic.
Yeah, with Gardasil and cervical cancer?
Well, yes, around that, yeah. I guess my thoughts are that, cancer itself is largely, I guess what they're finding out these days with these new drugs, these new cancer drugs, is that by enabling the immune system, the body's able to fight cancer. And my thought is that the vaccinations that are given in early childhood are exposing the immune system to a lot of things that those children wouldn't naturally be exposed to. And like a lot of the drugs these days...
Yeah, but hang on, Brett. It's a catch-22. If the vaccines had never been in place, in the first place, anywhere in the world, they would be exposed to them. The only reason they're not exposed to them is vaccinations have been successful.
Yes. As we're exposed to viruses and infections as young children, we develop an immune response to those things. Yes. And our immune system becomes stronger and stronger. Vaccinations bypass a lot of the natural immune responses in the body. And that... So
are you saying that Gardasil should not be used? And that what we should do is we should have a natural attrition rate and let a lot of women die from cancer of the cervix, because that'll mean that the ones that do survive it are quite strong.
No, I guess what I'm saying is that a lot of drugs and vaccines have been used over the years, and things like mercury in fillings and other chemical substances, we don't know the long-term effects of those things on the immune system.
Brett, are you anti-vaccination? Let's cut to the chase.
No, I'm not anti-vaccination. What I'm saying is we need to have a big picture view of the whole thing.
Okay, well, I think this woman that died at 28's mother has a very good big picture view. She's buried her daughter, and she's buried her daughter from cancer of the cervix. So she's saying, mothers, don't be remiss, get your daughters vaccinated. What do you say? Yes or no?
I say that we need to understand the big picture as far as what we're doing to our immune system when we take a whole lot of vaccines when we're young.
Okay. Well, I guess you and I are on different pages of a different conversation. Mothers, fathers, have you had the conversation with your kids? Have you had the conversation with each other? I mean, as parents, we owe it to our kids to have the conversation, at least have the conversation. What was the result of that conversation around Gardasil and protecting the young women in our community? 0800 AT 1080 Newstalk ZB.
My friend Tawny, she had the Gardasil injection when she was about 12 or 13, and when she was 13 or 14 or so, she everything just started going downhill from there. She was severely injured from the Gardasil injection. She started getting nausea, headaches, and she was always tired. And she couldn't go to school anymore. She used to be an avid cheerleader. She was international. She can't do that anymore. She's incredibly sick. It's just made her life absolute hell.
The vaccination, you think, or is there something that else has happened to her?
That has happened.
And you've got the medical evidence to trace it back to that?
Yes.
Where did that come from?
She's been to lots of different doctors, and they've I don't know who it is, sorry, but her mum has been talking to someone, and they've got a petition signed to get the Gardasil, the vaccination to be stopped.
Okay, have you had Gardasil vaccination?
I have indeed.
And anything happened to you?
Yes, it is. Currently, I've been going to doctor's appointments. I had it about a year ago, just because my mum wanted me to take not have the risk, and now I'm getting really incredibly tired. One of the side effects that can happen is depression. I did have depression previous to the injection, but ever since the injection has happened, I have been getting increasingly worse.
Kelly, there are a lot of people in our community that suffer with depression, that have never had Gardasil vaccines.
Yeah.
There are people that have depression and then something happens in their life and they get it again, or it goes away. Yeah. That has nothing to do with Gardasil. Yeah. Is it possible it's coincidental?
Well, considering it's been linked back to lots of other sufferers from the Gardasil injection, but that's only one of the many symptoms. I mean, Tawny, she has such bad social anxiety, she can't hang out with friends anymore. It's just one thing on the endless list of things that has happened. She's currently actually...
But Kelly, this is where I'm coming from, so I'm very clear with you, all right? Teenagers and people in general will have crises in their life and get unwell, suffer with depression, all sorts of malaise. And there's no chemicals in their body that have caused it. It just happens.
Yeah.
Okay? What I'm asking is it possible it could be coincidental?
I don't think so, because I had depression previous to this, and...
So then it's not... So therefore it is coincidental, because you had depression beforehand, you have the Gardasil vaccination, and you have depression afterwards. Well, hang on a minute, it was already there.
No, it was already there, but once I had the injection, everything started getting worse. I was having suicidal thoughts more and more, and I had been put into hospital because of my suicidal tendencies.
How old are you?
I'm currently 19.
Okay, you're getting counselling, you're being looked after?
Yeah.
Good. Are you on top of it?
Well, yeah, but I'm just trying to get the awareness out there for Gardasil, because this is an absolutely horrible vaccination that so many people have suffered greatly from.
Well, we know you have, and your friend has, and we'll see if we can track down someone that works in this area. We'll see if we can get a gynecologist or somebody to talk to us that will actually maybe be able to clear that up, Kelly. You have a good afternoon.
Like.
Okay?
The website is ga-nz.com.
Okay, thanks for that.
Right.
All the best. G'day, Lance.
Yeah, hi, Danny.
Where you go? Yes, where you go? You're on here.
Yeah, not too bad. About the HPV thing. I recently, about 12 months ago, decided to get vaccinated. I'm 43 years old, and I was advised to do it by my doctor.
You were vaccinated with Gardasil?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Why?
Because I became single, and I'd started dating, and went for a sexual health checkup, and my sexual health doctor, recommended that I get vaccinated against it. And I didn't get any funding because I'm over 20, so you have to pay $600, and they give you 3 injections, and they give you 1 injection, then about 6 months later they give you another one, another 6 months later they give you another one. And it's, for males, it prevents you from getting, gives you a 50% less probability of getting certain cancers, like throat cancer, or, bowel cancer, or testicular cancer. And I think it's important that all under 20-year-old males and females should go and get it done. And the new vaccine that is out currently, according to my doctor, is it'll vaccinate you lifelong against HPV.
Well, it's interesting because when you said you were vaccinated, I was surprised. One, I thought this was for women only, so I've learned something. Secondly, I would have thought it was so because if you're having multiple partners, and they say there is a possible link between cancer of the cervix and multiple partners, that maybe males are carrying something, and then that would stop you passing it on. Did your doctor talk to you about that?
Yes, he did. Basically, 80% of people that have it don't have any symptoms, which is why the females have to go in for smear tests. And the same for males, they don't have any symptoms. And 1 in 8 females is a carrier, and there's an 80% chance they don't know that they're carrying it. So that's why the smear test is important. But with regards to males, it's also important to reduce their cancer risk as well. And as I say, under 20 years for males and females, it's funded by the government and it doesn't cost you anything. But once you go over the 20-year mark, then you become liable for costs,
So once you've heard a story like someone like Kelly, who is saying that she believes the vaccination has caused problems for her friend and for herself, what's your response to that?
Well, you're always going to have a small percentage of people that get vaccinated that have issues with it. It happens with the flu vaccine every year. And it's the same with other vaccines.
It's the greater good thing.
I've got 2 children that are quite young, and as soon as they turn 12 years old, I'll definitely be getting them vaccinated, because I wouldn't want to see them get any form of, if they've got a 50% less chance of getting these cancers, which are problematic in New Zealand society, it's better off to get it done than not to have it done.
Appreciate the call, Lance. Hey, thanks for your call.
Okay.
Hey, all the best. Taking yours, 0800 80 1080. Newstalk ZB. Have you had your daughters vaccinated? Newstalk ZB.
Newstalkzb.co.nz. Now back to Danny Watson.
It is 12:33 from the Centres for Disease Control and Prevention. I have some information about HPV vaccination. I'll get to that. Hello, Paula.
Oh, hi.
Where are you in this discussion?
I think it just comes down to making a personal and informed decision. I think that whatever decision you make, as long as you've researched it and decided why you're doing it, then that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, but the trouble is with research. There's research, and then there's Dr. Google.
Oh, absolutely. But if you take the time to talk to people, if you talk to your doctor and you talk to people that you trust are giving you the correct information, then better to do that than behave like a sheep and just do it because everybody else is doing it.
Yep. So are you for this HPV vaccination?
Well, luckily I don't have to decide because my kids are boys. But I know that some countries are vaccinating boys, but I would seriously think about it before I did it. We didn't vaccinate them against men's B. We did everything else, all the other childhood illnesses, but not men's B. But that was an informed decision. We talked to the doctor and we talked to a few people, and I did look online and things like that, and I decided not to do that, and I'm comfortable with that decision.
Here's what the Centres for Disease Control and Prevention recommend, okay? This is like a question and answer series there, because lots of people have lots of questions, right? The question is, who should get HPV vaccine? The answer is, and I'll give you the full answer, all kids who are 11 or 12 years should get the 3-dose series of HPV vaccine. Teen boys and girls who did not get the vaccine when they were younger should get it now. Young women can get HPV vaccine through to age 26. Young men can get vaccinated through to age 21. The vaccine is also recommended for gay and bisexual young men or any young men who has sex with men. Also for young men with compromised immune systems, including HIV, if they did not get HPV vaccine when they were younger. And the other question is this, if HPV infection is so common, is it really that bad? The answer is, most people with HPV never develop symptoms or health problems. Most HPV infections, 9 out of 10, go away by themselves within a couple of years. But sometimes HPV infections will persist and can cause health problems. Health problems that can be caused by HPV include genital warts, that is warts in the genital area, cervical cancer, a type of head and neck cancer in the back of the throat, including the base of the tongue and tonsils in women and men, anal cancer in women and men, vulva and vaginal cancer, obviously in women, and penile cancer in men. Did you find that in your research?
No, but...
So Paula, so my question is this, you see, I didn't know men could get the vaccine. I didn't know that. And I've only...
I knew that.
Yeah, hang on. I didn't know that, so I've just found that out. You said you've done a lot of informed research and made your decision accordingly, and you've just said you didn't know they were some of the cancers they could get.
No, but I don't feel I need to make that decision because at the moment they're not doing it for boys in schools and things. But it's the way that a lot of these things are rolled out and basically forced on people. And you see people just doing the vaccinations.
Paula,
they're doing it at schools and everybody's doing it, and so-and-so's getting the vaccination, I better get it too. Why shouldn't we question just because a government agency tells us, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that at all, or an anti-vaccination person, but just because a government agency tells us to do something, does that mean that they're always going to be right?
Paula, questioning it is good. I think it's great. Absolutely.
So why should I be a sheep and follow?
No, hang on. No, I'm not talking about sheep. I mean, I think you're using quite emotive language, actually. There are incidents where cars get smashed up and people survive and they didn't have a seatbelt on. There are incidents of that. But the recommendation in the law tells us to wear a seatbelt. And I think vaccinations are the same.
Well, I don't know. I would disagree. I don't know. It does make me grumpy. I mean, and maybe it is a very emotive topic because you're talking about people's children and people always get emotive about their children.
Absolutely. We're dealing with lives here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this mother that's just buried her 28-year daughter says, don't play with their lives. Get the vaccination.
Oh, yeah, but then she's seeing it totally from her perspective, and that's awful. I'd hate to be in that situation. I feel really sorry for her. But that's one person out of, lots and lots of people.
Absolutely. So
I think everybody needs to be responsible and treat it individually and decide for themselves what they feel comfortable doing.
Yep, and that's why we live in the country we live in, Paula. All the best. Chris has just sent me an email. He said, Danny, frankly, I'm sick to the back teeth of these anti-vaccine nutters. They cherry-pick unbelievable dodgy reports to justify their views and what's going on for them. And they listen to utterly discredited quacks. They put people's lives in jeopardy and think they are holier than thou. They blame vaccinations for everything that ever happens to anyone. He says some other rather despicable things that I won't go into. So, HPV, are you surprised, men, that the vaccination could help us and help us guard against cancer? And have you had your daughters vaccinated? 0800 ATT. It's 12:42. G'day, Sky.
Yeah, hi, Danny. You are speaking to a conspiracy nut and anti-vaccine vaccine person here.
Cool.
However,
and thank you for being so brutally honest with me.
Yeah, that's all right. But I don't have children, and I've never needed to vaccinate them. I've been vaccinated myself, obviously, as a child from the 80s, and but I do agree with the Gardasil concept of vaccination. and that's probably because of what it prevents against. Obviously, the HPV is the primary, and I did know there was starting to become available for boys because by guarding them against it, they're not going to pass it on to women who can then have the other consequences from getting the virus.
But you've also got those other cancers. I mean, the other things like genital warts, blokes get them. Neck and throat cancer, blokes get them. Anal cancer, blokes get them. Penile cancer, blokes are the only ones going to get it. I mean,
Don't want that.
Yeah, so I'm being really honest as well. I didn't know that it was available to males.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess it's with everything, there's a risk. Now, if I had children, I mean, the reason I'm anti-vaccine is only because of what I've heard, and it's from other people whose children have developed, what is it, like not Asperger's, but where they have the vaccine and then the infant sort of changes after that.
Yes, there have been instances. One of the problems is this, Sky, with the anti-vaccine brigade. They are correct at lots of levels. Mm. There are cases where a child, a person, has had a huge reaction to a vaccination. Mm. And that happens. But they don't talk about the 100,000 that didn't. And for the parent whose child is affected, it's devastating. But then for the other 999,000 kids that then are immune to that particular disease, we don't celebrate that.
No, and if it happens to my child, I'd be incredibly angry. However, when it comes to it, if I am in that position, I will still probably go through with the vaccination because it's a risk we take to be responsible in our society. And so we could have side effects to the anti-cholesterol medication we take, you know. Susceptible to them. So
the funniest one that I think is out there is what they call the blue tablets, the Viagra, for erectile problems in males, right? When it first came into the marketplace, it was the panacea for anybody that couldn't have sex, that had penile dysfunction. But some guys had heart attacks. They died. They actually died. But there were a whole lot of people that said, not a bad way to go. Live with it. Take the risk.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, like a previous caller said, it's the informed decision. It's an individual decision. But by not doing, especially the early ones when our baby's first born, that's putting others at risk. Whereas this one, you can take it at an age where your teenager's going to understand, you're going to have more information. And our bodies have already developed our immune system and resistances. It was a little bit shocking or scary to hear the couple of girls that have had side effects from it, because obviously there are some.
Yeah, but you see, no, Sky, I have a problem with that conversation. I'm not saying they don't have side effects from it, but when someone has depression, then has a vaccination, and has more depression, you have to ask the question, was it the vaccination? And I would guarantee you couldn't prove that.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and that's...
I had depression as a teenager and didn't have any medication.
Yeah,
so.
and what we tend to do is, it's part of the human condition, is we seek the evidence that supports our story.
Absolutely.
Now, for instance, I've had some information sent to me about Vioxx. Merrick made Vioxx, which killed, I don't know, something like 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people from heart attacks. But there were about 80 million people that used it. And the problem was it created heart attacks in people who already had a problem. It's linked and it's dangerous, and it was withdrawn from the marketplace. And so that will be used as evidence as anti-vaccination. But even in that brutal situation of 60,000 people dying, 80 million people didn't. They got a benefit.
Yeah, it's the greater good argument. So.
It's hell of a hard to live with, though, if it's your child that's the one that's affected.
Yeah, that's where the emotion comes in. So
you're into now, Sky. You're going to go and do some research from a male's perspective now with this HPV vaccination.
Possibly. I've got a permanent partner, and like that guy who is in later in life, if he gets a new partner, I might do. But yeah, maybe I should get it checked just in case there's no obvious symptoms.
Who knows? You have a good afternoon, Sky. G'day, Gail.
Hi, Danny. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Hey, Danny, have you actually done any research on Gardasil yourself?
No, obviously, otherwise I would have known everything about it. And I haven't talked to anybody that knows everything about it yet.
Okay, because I am a mother of a girl who had the Gardasil. I have always vaccinated my kids. Gardasil came out, and I thought, well, we've got cancer on both sides of the family, male and female. Let's take the punt and get this vaccination. This was 5 years ago, 2010. We then ended up with round after round after round of doctors' consultations because her health just deteriorated so badly. This was an active international cheerleader, academically A grade all the way through.
Is this Kelly's friend?
This is Kelly's friend.
Yeah, Kelly called us and spoke about it, and you're her mother.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Now, and I discussed this with Kelly. Now, I'm not disputing that the vaccination affected your daughter.
Yeah.
At all, whatsoever. But I believe in the greater good syndrome.
Well, there is no greater good with this vaccination, unfortunately, Danny. When you start looking into the facts and figures, it's actually very frightening. When you look at HPV, there are over 100 strains of HPV, of which very, very few will cause cervical cancer. That's starter. Secondly, up to 98% of the population will have HPV at some point in their lives. The body will eradicate it naturally in about 97% of the cases. So now we're talking minimal numbers, right? We're down to the 1% that will have a problem with HPV and cervical cancer.
So what you're saying is we shouldn't vaccinate? Because it's only 1% that will die from it.
Exactly, and regular pap smears and other checkups will pick up cervical cancer. If you are having sex at whatever age it might be, you need to be getting pap smeared at least annually. And if your doctor's not telling you this, then I suggest you find yourself another doctor.
Can I ask you a question? In your research, did you find anything out about HPV being contracted by people that don't have sex?
No, I haven't seen anything along those lines. I'm sure there are cases because it can be passed orally. And this is the problem they're now facing with the guys. They're trying to promote the vaccine to the boys by saying that oral sex or anal sex can give you HPV as much as it can do the girls with cervical cancer.
I didn't know that there were guys out there getting vaccinated, and I didn't know that the vaccination could have an effect against genital warts, neck cancers, throat cancers, anal cancer, penile cancer.
It's like it's a bit like herpes. 99% of us are going to contract herpes at some point in our lives. It's not going to really affect us.
99%? That's hell of a high. I thought it was lower than that.
Have a look. How many of your mates get cold sores?
I'm just looking around. I'm just thinking now I haven't seen anyone with a lesion for a long time.
Yeah, but that's herpes. And we all
get that.
Generally under stress. Generally when your body's under stress, your immune system's fighting something, the herpes virus will present itself.
So can I a personal question? Because of your experience with your daughter, are you anti-Gardasil or are you anti-vaccinations?
I'm anti-Gardasil, big time. I've had meetings with the chair of the Health Select Committee. I have spoken with Jonathan Coleman's office. I have launched a petition to have this investigated. I will be appearing before the Health Select Committee in the coming months. This is not a vaccination that I want anyone else's children to have. If you look at the actual tests, and I have done some serious research on this, Merck botched the actual clinical trials. There was no WHO standard, the gold standard for placebos was not adhered to. There was actually aluminium in the placebos to taint the results. And I've got the data to prove this.
Look, Gail, I don't want to diss what you're saying. I don't want to diss what you're saying. However, we can all find the evidence to support our story. We can. It's actually, that is a known fact. And online, I've seen a photograph of a B-52 bomber on the moon, and there's also a Flat Earth Society. Now, I don't mean to be unkind, but hang on, Gail, but is it possible that you are clouded in the way you view your research because of what's happened to your daughter?
No, Danny, because I'm reading both sides of the story. I'm reading published clinical studies. I'm not going on Dr. Google.
Okay, so the guys, so what do you say to the guys?
I'm talking to doctors.
So,
I'm talking to heads of health in various other countries.
So what do you say to the guys that support this, the heads of health in other countries that support this?
That they need to look at the actual information. What Merck supplies to the public is not valid fact.
Well, I can't say yes or no to that, Carl, and neither can you. Taking your calls. It is 12:55. G'day, Paul.
Afternoon, Danny. How are you?
Good, mate. This is a hot topic by the looks.
Oh, I think so, and it will continue to be so because I think there's a lot of information, well, misinformation, as well as I think there's a lot of underhandedness by the pharmaceuticals that, or cover-ups or whatever you want to call it, because from my perspective, I agree totally with your last caller. And I've done some homework on Merck itself, and I've also done some homework on Gardasil, and I believe no woman should take it, none. And my partner, she wouldn't have it. And when we have our next child, male or female, no vaccinations.
See, I don't have a problem with that train of thought, but I do have a problem. Hang on, Paul. I do have a problem with the naysayers knowing best.
The naysayers?
Yeah.
Well, you can make your individual choice. That's totally up to you. But put it this way, I disagree totally with your analogy of a seatbelt. And a vaccination, because a seatbelt is not going to be intrusive and infect your body with particles that really shouldn't be in your body.
Yeah, but you see, Paul, the most important thing is we're having the discussion. The most important thing is that families have the discussion. The decision is always the families. News and Sport is next.
Danny Afternoons on Newstalk ZB.
It is 1:07. The number's 0800 80 10 80. A 28-year-old dies from cervical cancer. And her mother says, mums, get your girls vaccinated. We then have a discussion this afternoon. And this isn't a win or lose discussion. This is the discussion that needs to be had. And then we get the naysayers and we get those that say yes. And it's almost as though we form two separate camps. Well, I've just received an email from Grant. He said, regards the smears being done regularly. If it's true that it saves, then why did my friend's wife contract cervical cancer? She had her pap smear regularly every 12 months. And as regards your anti-vaccination people, what is their expertise? That's from Grant. Well, we have a gentleman that I'm very, very fond of having on the show, Dr. Anil Sharma. He is a consulting gynaecologist and urogynaecologist. Dr. Sharma, welcome back to News Talk ZB.
Hi, Danny. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I'm in the sunny Hawke's Bay.
Now, I know that you've just stepped out of a conference to talk to us. You're very, very busy and you've missed the conversation. However, it's all been geared by the death of this young woman, 28 years of age, died from cervical cancer, and her mother says, mums, go out and get your girls vaccinated. Now we've got the naysayers, we've got those saying yes, and there's all sorts of things coming into the conversation. First of all, this form of cancer, where does it come from, and how easy is it to cure, take care of?
Okay. Look, just to keep this straightforward, there's two main types of cervical cancer. The majority one is called squamous cancer. So 9 out of 10 of all of them are squamous cancers. They arise from the cells that are like our skin cells, but exist in a small area of the cervix, which is the opening to the womb. And essentially, if the screening program that came out years and years ago has subsequently been shown to be successful in reducing the incidence. So if women from about the age of 20 have their first smear and then regular cervical smears, the exact timing will depend on the first result. There's good evidence to show that it can be reduced. In other words, you can detect a problem before it becomes cancer, treat that problem, and therefore prevent cancer in many women.
And the other form of cancer?
So the other type is called glandular cervical cancer. It's about 1 in 10. It also sometimes, less commonly, can be picked up on smear testing, but it can also be missed until a late stage. But the main thing to remember here is that cervical screening is not foolproof. It's just a screening test. It's just someone randomly collecting thousands and thousands of cells from the cervix, putting them in a little bottle full of special liquid, and someone else looking at them down a microscope, and then looking at the cells, trying to tell you whether there's a problem or not. So these are not infallible tests. These are tests that are quite reliable, but they're not 100%.
Now, we have a lot of information about the HPV vaccine.
Yes.
And we know about vaccines. There have been mistakes made in the past.
Yes.
And we know there's a numbers game that 1 in every 100,000 or 1 in every 200,000 or 1 in every million will be affected by whatever vaccine it is.
Yeah.
We've spoken to a mother who believes her daughter has been affected by the vaccine.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned about the scaremongering around this.
Yeah.
Your thoughts around this and your learned opinion on it.
Okay, look, I'm from our conversations before, Danny, you know that I'm quite an open-minded sort of bloke. I'm not a black and white type bloke. And even though I like to think of myself as a scientist, I would like to quote the science. The science tells us that the vast majority of vaccines given for the vast majority of conditions do not lead to autism, do not lead to other significant medical problems. Can I say categorically 100% that all vaccines are 100% safe? No, I can't. But in the big scheme of things, all the testing for all the vaccines that are commonly used out there shows that they are good and safe, and that in the vast majority of cases, I firmly believe that the good that they do far, far, far outweighs the bad. It doesn't stop me from having major empathy and sympathy for when people are convinced that a vaccine has done something. But in most cases worldwide, it's been shown that it wasn't the vaccine. Unfortunately, there are even random events that can happen to fit young, healthy people. We hear about them. We hear about young guys dropping dead on a football field or on a rugby pitch in their 20s and post-mortem examinations not finding a cause. So unexplained death is rare, but can happen too. So it's very difficult. I mean, you don't want to tell someone, no, it definitely wasn't the vaccine, it's all in your head. But conversely, we have to go with the evidence.
Well, I'm with you in that camp. Actually, I'm very, very clear on that as well, thanks to talking to people like yourselves. Now, the other thing that came out this afternoon that I'm very surprised by, there's a guy who says that males are having Gardasil. They are having the vaccine, and it is helping to ward off genital warts, some head and neck cancers, anal cancer, penile cancer. That was news to me. That was absolute news to me.
Okay. The reality of, we can talk a little bit more about Gardasil in a minute, but first of all, to deal with males, in Australia, it's also been rolled out to teenage Australian boys, not just girls. And probably long term, that's something we should be looking at too. I'm not an expert in public health medicine or epidemiology. That's the work that those doctors need to do. But essentially, HPV is on the increase. About 85% of everyone on the planet has either had HPV or will have current HPV. It's very, very, very easily contracted, male and female. There's over 120 different members of the HPV family. It's not one single virus. It causes cervical screening abnormalities. It causes cervical cancer. It causes penile cancer. It causes throat cancer, certain types of cancer behind the nose and the upper part of the face. It can happen without promiscuity. You can have picked it up from the first person you ever had relations with. You can pick it up in your vocal cords when you're born. It's a group of quite prevalent viruses. Thankfully, the vast majority of the human population don't have any major problems with it. And this is the big, big problem. It's like, I like to think of a pyramid. Everyone who's ever had HPV is on the bottom of the pyramid. That's how many people there are. They cover the whole base of the pyramid. But the people that go on to have cancer, they're standing on the very, very, very pinnacle of the pyramid. So I think it's fair to say that the cancers it causes, everyone who gets those cancers, most of us who've had HPV don't get the cancer.
So do we need the vaccination then?
Yes, we do, because if you think about specifically about cervical cancer, there are 4 different types of HPV covered in the Gardasil vaccine. And if young women, young girls are vaccinated against those 4, that will almost certainly prevent around 60 to 65% of all cervical cancers. So the 2 viruses out of the 4 in it are the ones that are responsible for about 2 out of 3 of the cervical cancers. So yes, it will drop long-term. Logically, if everyone has it, we'll prevent 2 out of 3 cases of cervical cancer.
What are the chances of surviving when it is so hard to detect?
Well, it's difficult, Danny. I wouldn't say it's hard to detect. I would say that the vast majority of women who have screening and follow the screening program and don't forget and go and get it done, they will never get cervical cancer. So it's actually not hard to detect. It's actually straightforward to detect in the vast majority of cases.
Now, Gardasil.
Yes.
Let's go down this track. I get emails from people telling me, Danny, you're being too heavy-handed with these people that are anti-vaccination. Danny, you don't know what you're doing. I'm an authority. I've gone on and I've done all this research. And you're sitting there going, well, we all know what you can find online. What's the science?
The science of Gardasil?
Yes.
So Gardasil is basically what you're actually doing is giving a damaged version of those 4 viruses to individuals who are mounting an immune response against those 4 versions of the virus, not getting sick because of those 4 versions of the virus, because the virus has been damaged. And then the immune system is remembering that those viruses have been there before, so that when they come back in their fully strong form, the immune system is able to fight off the infection very quickly because it remembers. The immune system has a memory. So it's a bit like if you get a specific type of common cold and recover from it, you can't get that same type again. It's that type of scenario. So that's the basic science of vaccination. The naysayers don't believe that any vaccines work and won't be convinced regardless.
I appreciate the fact you've stepped outside the conference. We'll let you get back to it.
Thank you very much, Danny. You have a good day.
You too, Dr. Anil Sharma. Amazing guy. I love having him on the show. There we are, guys. Your response, 0800. It is 1:20. G'day, Doc.
Oh, Danny. I never rung Talkback before.
You're welcome. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Gardasil. First of all, I might say that I've been a nurse for many, many years, and I have nursed many people pro-vaccine. I have seen the ravages of the diseases that they prevent, and so I am definitely pro-vaccine, but I'm very anti-Gardasil.
Why is that?
Because New Zealand's children are the test, are the guinea pigs. It has been tested.
No, it's being used in Australia, it's used in America, it's used throughout the Western world. It's used throughout the world, Dot. It's not isolated in New Zealand.
No, now it is. But we were the first ones. They hadn't actually, New Zealand was the first to start using it. And it does concern me greatly that I don't think Gardasil is ethically used. Oh, God, Jenny.
Hang on, are you against 12-year-old girls being vaccinated with it?
I'm against, yes, I am.
Is it about their age? If they were 20, you'd be okay with it?
If they were old enough to decide they wanted it. But anyhow, as a mother, I've had all my kids vaccinated for various things, but my granddaughters haven't been vaccinated with Gardasil. But they have had, all their vaccinations are up to date. And yes, I do believe in vaccination. I believe in people's health and the greater good.
Well, it's interesting what Dr. Anil Sharma had to say about this, that, there's 2 out of those 4 viruses that are in there, and the vaccination does protect you against it. However, he also said that, no vaccination is 100% sure, and he didn't say this, I'm saying this, I don't think no vaccination is 100% safe, because it will affect some individuals. Taking your calls, 0800 80 1080, more to the point. Have you vaccinated your daughters? And now this information's out there. Would you vaccinate your sons? Newstalk ZB.
Hi. Just calling about the Gardasil. I've actually done a fair bit of research on it, in particular for a speech that I did just recently also. Now, many people will not have heard about the called the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, the American one. Basically, in 1982, there were 4 different major pharmaceutical corporations that went to the US government and said, look, we're getting slammed with civil suits against the vaccines, and unless you offer us protection from lawsuits, we're not going to continue making them. It took till 1986. Ronald Reagan went, all right, we're going to come up with this program. Instead of telling them to make safer vaccines, they gave them protection from liability on all vaccines. Since that time, there are a massive number of other vaccines that have come out. And they're not responsible if there is any damage caused by them. So their thing is, in getting the figures up, now the HPV in particular, Diane Harper was one of the ladies who worked on it. Now, she has come out saying that, and there's a lot of stuff that says otherwise, but when you actually watch her speak, there's a lot of stuff that says it doesn't last long enough for it to stop the cancer, so the length of it doesn't work for long enough. Also, if anyone has been in contact with the virus and already has it, it increases the risk of cancer. It has not been tested long-term for fertility problems or anything like that, especially with boys now taking it. I think in Australia they're actually looking at making it 9 years old that they give it to them. In America, where it is all about the big dollars and pushing it as much as you can, they are giving a vaccine for a sexually transmitted disease to babies. It's incredible. It's not been tested enough. New Zealand was the first place. In America, they have over 100, or at the time, the stats I was reading recently, I think it was 2013, they had 149 confirmed deaths from it, plus a mass stack of injuries.
How many confirmed deaths?
149 on the stats that I was reading.
Yeah. Will you see? Look, hang on. I just want you to back the bus up a minute.
Yep.
After talking to Dr. Sharma, who is a consultant gynecologist, and urogynecologist, and I believe a really good communicator. He speaks very simple language. He said there is no vaccine, that's 100%. Hang on, effective, and there is no vaccine that is 100% safe.
Yeah.
Now, so of course we can find the evidence against any vaccine, because hang on, but no, Peter, be fair here. Be fair in this argument. It's very easy to find the evidence against of any vaccine. You can find evidence against the polio vaccine.
Oh,
it's
yes,
hang on.
Polio vaccine.
Yeah, but Peter,
50,000 odd Indians
Peter,
injured. Yeah.
Hang on. You can find the evidence, but no one talks about the hundreds of thousands, the millions that get through without any side effects and are prevented from getting those diseases.
You look at some of the other ones. The measles vaccine, for instance, was brought out 12 years after the United States had already got it under control.
Yeah, Peter, hang on. No, Peter, look, I'm going to put you on hold for a moment. We're not talking the politics of America. We're not talking anti the drug companies. We're talking facts. There is no vaccine that is 100% safe at all. You listen to me. Please listen to me.
I am agreeing.
And absolutely you're agreeing. But what you're doing is you're taking the one death in every million and saying we shouldn't save the other 999,000 because a person died.
No, they're talking about, they're actually looking at changing the...
Who's they? Who's they?
The people who do this is for the American figures. They're talking, it's more like 2 or 3 per 100,000 that are severely injured or die from the vaccines.
There are so many vaccines that don't kill. Literally, so many in every 100,000. They don't, Peter. You need to be very, very specific. And all you're doing is scaremongering. And I'm not into scaremongering. Taking your calls, 0800 80 1080, Newstalk ZB.
Now back to Danny Watson.
It is 1:34. The number's 0800 80 1080. G'day, Matt.
G'day, Danny. Hey, I just wanted to point out why a lot of people have trouble understanding the issue with statistics and the medical problems and the scientific background in it. If you don't have a tertiary education in commercial law, statistics, a medical degree, a degree in biology or something, you're going to have trouble understanding why all these people can come to these conclusions. So your last caller wanted to talk about lawsuits and things. Well, I presume she's not a lawyer or done a commercial law degree, but if you're going to make vaccines, the last thing you want to have are lawsuits on the anomaly where one person out of 1 million or 200 or 300,000, as she said, the last thing you want is to be sued for X amount of dollars, which in the States would be huge. So she's taking it off her own back to say that they're somehow inventing these vaccines that are dangerous to the wider population. But in reality, if she had a commercial law degree or anything like that, she'd understand that there are just certain risks that big companies cannot take on. It's just risk management. That's all that is.
I know guys that run sports clubs, and they have public liability.
Yeah.
Sometimes of $1 million to $5 million. And people go, why do you have that? We've got ACC. Well, it's in case. And that's what you're really talking about.
Exactly. Now, if everybody who rang you up had a tertiary degree in X amount of things, you probably wouldn't have half these redundant conversations. But we're not all going to have those degrees. We're not all going to do tertiary qualified study. Now, that's why we have a parliament, because they're representing us with those degrees. The other two issues I have is the person calling up saying that that she wishes the kids to be 20 to make their own decisions. Well, if you leave it to your 20, you've already got the HPV, so it's too late. So that's not a possibility. The other gentleman said he'd done research and his wife wasn't going to have it. Well, how old's your wife? If she's over the age of 12 and over the age of 16, she's likely to have HPV if she's sexually active, or she'll have it of the throat if she's kissed somebody.
Well, as the doctor said, 85% of us have either had it or we've got it. So,
that's right.
And we you know what? We haven't got 85% of the population with these cancers.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the problem, once again, is people think they're informed, but they're not capable of understanding statistics, understanding medical terms, understanding scientific processes where you come up with a thesis, you either prove or disprove, or in most cases disprove, and then you make your assumptions on that and a conclusion. But you have an argument both ways. You don't just read something off Dr. Google.
There's also a very good science blog out there. It is a blog, and it's about the diplomatic immunity, it's called, which is really interesting. They have an article about HPV, and it says seriously good data reinforces its safety. So you can go anywhere you want to find the evidence you want for your arguments, Matt. I quite like the way you've placed this. And that's why we rely on people like Dr. Anil Sharma. That's why we rely on our government agencies.
Yeah, you want to go to court and go on a manslaughter or a murder charge or any sort of criminal charge, do you get a lawyer or do you get on Google and read the case studies and represent yourself?
Yep, rest your case, Matt. Very interesting.
Cheers, Danny.
Yeah, Gardasil, is it a safe vaccine? Well, here we go. Years of study. Clinical studies began in 2002 and they have been going on for 13 years. The number of studies since the vaccine was licensed, 9 years. Number of post-licensure safety studies, 2006 onwards, as of mid-2015, 15 case studies. Number of individuals in the studies, over 1 million individuals. Who's been studied? Males and females, aged 9 years to 45 years, including people with special conditions such as pregnant women. What are the risks from the vaccine other than minor stuff? Remember, fainting is a real risk, as is anaphylaxis. Taking your calls, 0800 80 1080. G'day, Penny.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to contribute to your discussion. One thing that's always really amazed me is when people talk about having made these informed decisions, but they often make their informed decision from the fact that their parents immunised them. So they make a decision knowing that they don't have the chance of catching, say, mumps and never did, or measles or whooping cough or diphtheria or whatever other diseases were around when they were a child. So what a very safe place they are in which to go talking and to be a naysayer.
Yeah.
Because they're completely safe, aren't they? Because their parents weren't naysayers. Their parents went, had a lot of parents back in their generation, say we're talking about someone in their, say late 20s, early 30s is having children, their parents would have seen children die of mumps, would have seen children die of measles, would have seen or know of people who had polio, would have seen a baby, a tiny baby, die the most tragic death from diphtheria, or seen a little a toddler die from whooping cough. So of course they're going to immunise their children. So what happens is that then that child grows up, and there's a whole generation of children that have been immunised, so they grow up to be 29, 30-year-old adults all having their children, but they've never seen anybody die. So they make the decision to not immunise because they've been immunised.
And it opens the door.
Well, can you see where I'm coming from there?
Absolutely, Penny.
And I think it's incredibly selfish because you can't make that decision when you are safe. You know, you're completely safe. I mean, I think also if people are going to make an informed decision, they should go into a hospital and see a little baby dying of diphtheria. I worked in a hospital for 10 years when I was young. I was 18, from the age of 17 to my mid-20s. I saw a little boy die of the mumps where the virus travelled to his heart and he had a heart attack right in front of my very eyes. I was only 17, and I tell you what, nothing shook me up more than a doctor saying to me, that's what happens when you don't immunise your children.
I remember in our community some of the guys that came in from the islands and elsewhere that had polio and had calipers on their legs. And I remember, it didn't strike home because I just sort of thought we use the word cripple, right?
Yeah.
It didn't strike home that they were just different. And they, good brains, everything else, but their legs were mangled in some way. It wasn't until I visited someone in an iron lung that I absolutely understood polio.
So you actually got it then, didn't you?
Oh, man, it shook me to the core.
So I think that these people that you've had talking today, I think the question you should say to them, in your informed decision, have you visited a hospital and seen a baby with diphtheria? And then the other thing is, and are you immunised? Did your parents immunise you? Because those people are talking it's just from such a safe place. It's such a safe place to be when you're immunised. And they're inflicting upon their children what they never, ever would ever have experienced themselves because their parents immunised them.
And they did it from a choice of wanting their children to live.
To have the very best because they saw children die.
Well, I appreciate your call, Penny.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
No, take a breath. Taking your calls, 0800 80 10 80.
Talk about this HPV and I guess immunisations full stop. I think the wonderful thing that we have nowadays is choice. You know, we live in a democracy, we have information fed to us, and we have a choice. And generally the information will give you ratios. The ratio of having a prophylactic reaction or a ratio of fainting or illness, we are given those. And we have to just basically say to ourselves, are we okay with this ratio? And if you're okay with the ratio, then go for it. Protect yourself. I just went to uni today. I'm doing a midwifery degree, and we were learning about amniotic embolism, which is fatal. Okay, 1 in 45,000 New Zealand women will die from it in labour. Does that mean...
What is it?
Amniotic embolism? It's basically where the amniotic fluid mixed with the maternal blood in the maternal blood system. And to some women, it will kill them. It will outright kill them, which is what happened to that young lassie in Huntley. And there is no predictor. There is no stopping it. It is just how it is.
So going on those stats, you shouldn't be having babies.
No, shivers no, because if 1 in 45,000 is just a little bit too close to home, we need to all stop having children.
What did you think of Penny's call? Penny was.
I liked Penny. I thought Penny was bang on in the sense of she's been a nurse. She has seen the results of some of these illnesses. And I think that's the key thing. We are so sheltered now, we wouldn't know nothing if it hit us in the head. Most of us, I'm sort of in my 40s, I've never seen war. I wouldn't even know what it looked like. Yet we weigh in on what we should do in wartime. It's like, really? Because we've got experience in that.
Well, the interesting thing out of Penny's call, which made me sit up, was, yes, we got several generations in New Zealand making decisions from safety. So we can, in our democratic society, decide against vaccination. That's our choice. But it doesn't give a choice to the population, because if enough make the choice to not vaccinate, we could end up with epidemics, the likes of which we haven't seen. for 3, 4 or 5 generations. And that has nothing to do with democracy. That's just Mother Nature doing what it does extremely well. Taking your calls.
Oh, hello there, Danny. Yes, Penny was very correct in what she said, and I'm probably double Penny's age. I started nursing in 1949, and I can remember little 6-month-old babies sitting in steam tents with them in Edinburgh hospitals whilst they died of pneumonia. I can also remember being given 2 minutes to change an iron lung and bed bath the person in it. And it took 2, sometimes 3 nurses to do all the necessary in that 2 minutes, because that's as long as they could be out of the iron lung. And those people that are so, their own agendas, you know, they should go, well, you can't go and see it now because it's practically eradicated through the vaccination, immunisation programs.
Yeah, and that's that point of safety and place of safety that Penny was talking about. G'day, Leonie.
Hi, Danny. I'm a first-time caller, but I feel quite passionate about the subject. I think with vaccines, the big elephant in the room quite often is the fear some people have that their children will contract autism. And I'm the mother of 2 autistic boys, and I'm pretty sure that the vaccine had nothing to do with it, actually. My mother is autistic. She has relatives who are autistic. And I remember even before my boys were born, in the womb, they were just kicking and cartwheeling around like you wouldn't believe. It was like watching an alien movie. And I just think that...
there's a certain amount of scaremongering.
Yes, there is, unfortunately. And I've always been quite interested in history. And if anyone wants to see what life used to be like, go to an old graveyard, look at the headstones. It won't all be people dying in their 80s and 70s. There'll be a whole lot of 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds.
I'm always amazed when you go into a cemetery and the family plots with the number of little children. G'day, Tricia.
Oh, hi.
We've got about a minute.
Oh, right.
Where you go?
Well, look, I just sort of look at this from the point of view of where are the studies done on the difference in health, overall general health, of vaccinated children versus non-vaccinated children? And for these people that say, you know, I'm going from a point of safety because I was vaccinated as a child. I never was vaccinated as a child. Our local GP didn't think it was a good idea. He went on to change his mind, but that was, that was the reason that I actually enjoyed having measles, mumps, chickenpox, even meningitis and whooping cough. And I believe that's why my immune system is actually as strong as it is today, because people don't get the difference between immunity and vaccines.
Yeah, but the problem is you don't have to worry about getting it because the vaccination program's been so strong. Okay.
I want to talk about this HPV and I guess immunisations full stop. I think the wonderful thing that we have nowadays is choice. You know, we live in a democracy. We have information fed to us, and we have a choice. And generally, the information will give you ratios. The ratio of, you know, having a prophylactic reaction or a ratio of fainting or illness, we are given those. And we have to just basically say to ourselves, are we okay with this ratio? And if you're okay with the ratio, then go for it. Protect yourself. You know, I just went to uni today. I'm doing a midwifery degree, and we were learning about amniotic embolism, which is fatal. Okay, 1 in 45,000 New Zealand women will die from it in labour. Does that mean...
What is it?
Amniotic embolism? It's basically where the amniotic fluid mixed with the maternal blood in the maternal blood system, and to some women, it will kill them. It will outright kill them, which is what happened to that young lassie in Huntley. And there is no predictor. There is no stopping it. It is just how it is.
So, going on those stats, you shouldn't be having babies.
No, shivers, no, because if 1 in 45,000 is just a little bit too close to home, we need to all stop having children.
What did you think of Penny's call? Penny was.
I liked Penny. I thought Penny was bang on in the sense of you know, she's been a nurse. She has seen the results of some of these illnesses, and I think that's the key thing. We are so sheltered now, we wouldn't know nothing if it hit us in the head. You know, most of us, you know, I'm sort of in my 40s, I've never seen war. I wouldn't even know what it looked like. Yet we weigh in on what we should do in wartime. It's like, really? Because we've got experience in that.
Well, the interesting thing out of Penny's call, which made me sit up, was, yes, we got several generations in New Zealand making decisions from safety. So we can, in our democratic society, decide against vaccination. That's our choice. But it doesn't give a choice to the population, because if enough make the choice to not vaccinate, we could end up with epidemics, the likes of which we haven't seen for 3, 4, or 5 generations. And that has nothing to do with democracy. That's just Mother Nature doing what it does extremely well. Taking your calls, 0800 80 1080 News.